that was another major reason why I got into doing the marine cleanups, was like going diving around some of the coral reefs and stuff, and just seeing the amount of marine debris that was out there. Like that was from the first 2 tours that we did. We mainly just did like beach cleanups and river cleanups, like waterfalls and freshwater systems and stuff. And then once I got to Sri Lanka, I was like, now because the waters were a lot clearer in a way, like, and a bit more accessible. I was in the one spot for 6 months, like, whereas all the other tours I'd traveled around a lot. Like,
were you near Trincomalee or something, or was it?
I was in Harikatia, down on the central south coast, and Mediha as well.
Right.
And kind of fluctuating between the two. But I rented a house off a local in Harikatia for like pretty much 4 months. And then I started, because I was in the one spot, I'd already cleaned up the beaches, like whatever beach I could get access to, I'd already cleaned it. And I was like, I'd gotten all the data, and I'm like, right, what else can I do? And I'm like, I'm going to start diving underwater, like, and just cleaning up the plastics that I was finding on the reef, and it's like, it was amazing, like the amount of stuff that you could find, like, that had kind of just melded itself into the reef, and the coral had kind of, in some aspects, like surfboard fins and stuff like that, like the coral had just added it and just grown over the top of it and kind of just added it into the system, like other bits of plastic and fishing line and stuff, like the coral just grows around it and just kind of dealt with it. And then it was more the plastics, like that was like, we really need to get rid of these. Like, there's certain products where like nature will find a way, and then there's other products where it's like
totally against
it's just not going to work. It's breaking down too small, and it's actually entering the food chain. Like fish are coming in and eating off the plastic bags that the chip wrappers are wrapped in and ingesting it. And that's at a macro scale. Like, you're looking, and then you start looking at microplastics and stuff like that. And some of the predictions for that is like mind-bogglingly scary. Like, in terms of the amount of microplastics that even a human would consume over our lifetime.
Yeah, I think Owen yesterday, when I was talking to him, said, like, even if we stopped now producing plastic, there'd still be like something like, I don't know, it was a large number. It was like 66 million tons or gigatons of plastic out there. I don't want to, I forget the exact number, but it was huge. And it's like, we've got to start taking it out.
And processing it into something that's more used, until we can find, there's a lot of different alternatives that are out there. Like, I was doing some research on an interesting one, which was like prawn shells.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a product, and then using the proteins that are in the actual creation of the shell, to come out like, when you see like a prawn cracker before it's being cooked, it's like nearly looks like a plastic.
Yeah.
And they're like, it ticked a lot of the boxes, like it's natural breakdown, it didn't require too much energy in order to produce it. It itself is a waste product of an economically viable industry.
Yeah.
There's a whole range of different things, and just it's trying to find those actual products that, while replacing plastic, isn't creating a problem that's just as bad or worse.
Yeah.
Like, and then also finding a way to process the plastic that we already have created into something that's more lifelong, like looking at roof tiles and, something, or footpaths, like roads, like things you actually want to last 100 years.
That's interesting you say that, yeah. Because next to my place here, we've got some like ruins, and they've been around for ages, but the walls are starting to fall, and it, you know, if it was up to me and as a long-term goal, which it kind of is, and I have the ability to sort of restore that building, I was thinking about, well, wouldn't it be good to just kind of get plastic Coke bottles and fill them with concrete and use that as the base? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly a newcomer to that kind of thing, but yeah, it's just talking to you now, it seems like there's endless possibilities. And I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
grand designs, and people are definitely doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's a really amazing guy that's called Precious Plastics,
Yeah,
is what he puts his stuff up as. And he pretty much gives you the blueprint on how to make a lot of machines that will reprocess plastic into usable building materials or bowls, or the main one that I was interested in was building materials because of the longevity.
yeah,
But he's like an engineer.
yeah.
He's
Wow.
based, I don't know where exactly he's based. I want to say Germany, but it might be somewhere else. But he's pretty much, yeah, he gives you the blueprints, he gives you the CAD files, he gives you everything that you'd need in order to build your own machine to reprocess whatever plastics you want. Like, the amount of
Wow.
information that he has on that website is phenomenal, right? And he has videos that shows you how to make the machine and how the machine works. And yeah, it's quite, it blew my mind when I found it. I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, this guy is a legend. Like,
yeah. Well,
he's
it's
the kind of
fantastic
guy
to
that
hear
we
about.
need in saddles.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, he's just doing it all open source.
Wow. Precious
Yeah,
Plastics.
yeah.
Check that.
And
I'll check that
yeah,
out.
it's incredibly good work of what he does. And all the machines he grabs, like, you can pretty much build them from a scrapyard.
Wow.
There's a few different parts you might need to order brand new, like, that you can't find them, like different thermo controls and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
he shows you everything, like how to melt the plastic, how to make a grinder that grinds it down into certain widths, and then process it through like a like a melting sort of
Yeah.
thing, so you can cast whatever you want, pretty
Yeah.
much. He's an absolute genius.
But it really is. I mean, it strikes me as amazing that that kind of thing isn't in the public eye and like immediately known. That's one.
Yeah,
I
like, as
mean,
far as I'm concerned, it should be taught at every single
it
school
should
going
be
around
taught
the world.
exactly.
Or like have one at every school. Like, this
Yeah.
guy's an absolute champion. Yet
Yeah.
a lot of people have no idea that he even exists. Like, unless you actively research it, it's not that easy to find.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not readily shared, or like, that's a whole new story that we won't go into anyway.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I know
You
what
know
you're
that
talking
one,
about.
right?
It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult sharing environmental solutions across social media.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of
Definition of that.
learning that. It's
Yeah. So this
not
guy
easy
does
to
it
run.
all on his website, and he's absolute legend. If I
Yeah.
got to meet him, I'd love to have a beer with him.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to check it. I'm going to check out that site for sure, because
Yeah, it's well
it's
worth
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
There's so much info there about every different type of plastic, what it can and can't be used for, what its melting temps are, like
Wow.
every minor detail that you could possibly want to know about plastics, and every different grade of plastic.
Yeah.
It's there. It's
Because
absolutely amazing. No.
because it is, yeah, that, and it's kind of the third, I guess, third step to the problem of plastics, where we first one is, well, we've got to stop the production as well as we can. The second is sort of stop what's out there making an even bigger impact, and then third is using it and taking it away efficiently,
Mm.
finding uses for those things. Because I mean,
Yeah,
is it the ocean cleanup
yeah,
is the I guess when I think of big initiatives that are getting a lot of traction, it's that one.
yeah. Yeah, and that's an interest. Like, what they're what he's done is pretty amazing as well. Hey, like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
created a new river trap system,
yeah,
which is pretty much like because a lot of the research that I've like in El Salvador, I had ended up meeting with the Minister of Tourism
yeah,
and the Environment by the end and submitting a report to them about what we'd collected from the local area and formulating a report as to how we can actually fix the problem. And one of the main parts was like the floating marine debris traps, like,
yeah,
and then once I started getting further and further into like, more modern ones that have
yeah,
been designed, and that same guy from the Ocean Cleanup Project
yeah,
um, has created a river one that's like a Ferris wheel essentially, and it picks it up and sorts it and processes it all on board,
yeah, yeah.
which
I
is
remember seeing it
absolutely amazing. And he's installed it in one of the major rivers in Java.
in in Jakarta,
Yeah,
I think.
and a couple of others around the world, which is that's another part of that solution. But you just don't hear anything about it unless you actively go searching for that information, which a lot of the general public generally won't. Like it's just
No,
you
and
know,
that's yeah. I mean, well, again, it's about the sharing of information. Why isn't it that stuff that gets shared? And I mean, the media, for example, it seems like you know, it sh- it should be hot off the press, that kind of stuff
yeah,
constantly, the developments,
yeah,
but it's sidelined by fear mongering headlines that just
yeah.
get
It's like
some.
plastic is a problem. Like you still see it all over the place. It's like this
Yeah,
is a problem, and it's like, man, people come up with solutions for it
yeah,
like years ago.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
even when plastic was created, there was still guys that were going like, it's a good product, but
yeah,
it also might have these impacts in the future. It's not like it's new information that's come out. Like, it's
yeah,
just that that information has been held back because it's more economically viable. Like, let's go old school. Like,
yeah,
let's get glass bottles and have the dude that comes around with, like, when I was a kid, and I'm not even that old, I'm 33, like,
yeah,
we'd have a guy that'd drive around in the truck, he'd drop off your soda bottles and everything, and then you'd give him the empty crate that was
yeah,
full of empty bottles, and he'd drop off a new one next week. Like, that system is still in place in a lot of countries around the world. Like,
yeah,
and yet, Australia, England, America, all these major kind of developed countries are trying to promote plastic sales across these other countries that are still using that like traditional method of drinking out of a bottle. Like
yeah,
some of the bottles that I've drunk out of in Indo are 20 years old,
yeah,
like Coca-Cola bottles.
yeah.
Like there's
It
nothing
should be
wrong
the
with
way. No, no,
it.
absolutely not.
But it's just not as economically viable as what it is to produce a plastic bottle if that company isn't held accountable for the processing of it afterwards.
Yeah, that's one of the
That was the
accountability.
major thing that changed was, and the transition was, you go and look at an old bottle like that you find, wherever. I find heaps of them in the bush or out in old campgrounds or whatever, and it'll say on the bottom of the bottle or someone on the bottle, this is the property of this brewing company or that
Yeah,
manufacturing company because that bottle actually belonged to them. It was
yeah,
worth something. Like you were only purchasing the liquid that was inside of it.
yeah, right.
Whereas now, when you purchase a bottle, you purchase the liquid that's inside of it as well as the bottle.
That's the
That's
bottle.
not
Yeah,
their property anymore. That's
yeah,
your
right.
property.
Yeah,
So you as a consumer takes on the responsibility of
you're the one.
processing that waste. So that was a major transition shift in the way that
It's all
humanity
about it.
has had to deal with the processing of waste. Is
Yeah,
all of a sudden these things are your property, and you don't have the money to process it properly. All you have is whatever infrastructure is in place by your local shire, your local state government, or your federal government.
It reminds me of a Chris Maven.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
told me he used to in Victoria, maybe on a night out, I'm not sure, like go around the McDonald's and see all the trash that gets left outside the McDonald's, and he'd pick up like every piece of rubbish that had McDonald's on it and take it inside and dump it on the table and just say, it's your problem now.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
And that's, it's kind of a way that, you know,
Yeah.
got to start thinking about it. I mean, obviously people have to take responsibility for what they buy and make sure it gets put somewhere that's not going to harm the planet. But yeah, to have incentives maybe driven by the companies producing the stuff would be probably a good step forward. But
yeah, and the way I guess people can do that, but is by reducing the amount of consumption of specific products, you know, and trying to reuse whatever you can and reprocess whatever you can. It's like, but at the same point, like you go into a supermarket, I don't know what it's like over where you are, in France, but we're here in some parts of Australia. Like if I want to go and purchase orange juice, say for an example, in a plastic 2 litre bottle, it's about $2.50 or something. You know, in a glass bottle, it's $7.
yeah, it's the same with
And it's the same product, or essentially the same product, coming from a different manufacturer, but they're being outpriced.
well,
Where most of the general public can't afford that. Like if you're a single mum with 2 kids or something, 3 kids, like my mum brought us up, like that's not even if you wanted to be conscious about what you're purchasing, it's not feasible. Like,
no,
you
that's
know, like
true.
the amount of orange juice that 3 kids might drink in 1 week, like that's like nearly the same amount of money that she'd spend on fuel a week or petrol or food in general. Like,
Yeah,
you know, it's like they're being outpriced. Like,
yeah, it's impossible. I mean,
yeah,
I went to I remember I lived in West End in Brisbane, and I went to like a whole kind of like a whole food shop where you could get dishwashing liquid, and you put the liquid inside your any container you wanted, and then they weigh it and they charge you. But it was like $12 a liter or something crazy, you know. It was just like more than gold. It was something you could have poured down the sink.
What?
I was thinking, I can't do that. Sorry.
No,
It's and
baking soda and vinegar is a good one for a natural detergent.
right, yeah, exactly. Just think of those solutions like that. It's like right in your face, but
just go old school. The best way. Just whenever you're like, oh, that's a problem and it's too expensive, you're like, hang on, how did they used to make it?
how did they?
What
Exactly.
did they used to do? Like, you know,
Toothpaste, all
and
that stuff.
it still works. Like, you know, it's not going to kill you. A bit of vinegar, like, you know. Like
It'll kill the bacteria. It'll serve its purpose, that's for sure.
yeah, it still does its job. It just doesn't smell minty and make pretty bubbles. Like, no, it still does the job.
Yeah, well, 100%. That's and baking soda. I mean, that's I've noticed here is on the baking soda packets. It's like this can be used for 1,000 things. You know, like, and it's true.
It's cheap as shit. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you just make up a little batch of that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's just finding those different solutions for these
Small
problems.
Yeah.
And just eliminate them slowly out of your day-to-day thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that way you're in fact reducing the amount of money that you're spending, like, because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And you're reducing your impact on the planet little by little.
You know? Little by little, that's it.
Everybody's perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I went to a pub the other night where, like, because of state legislation or something, if it's over X number of people, that are there, they're supposed to change the glasses over to plastic cups, like,
Yeah.
and, I was just like, well, I'm just going to hold on to this one cup for the whole night.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have a choice, like, or I just don't get a drink for the whole night.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, or I just use one cup
Yeah.
and ask the bartenders, hi, this is the reason why I intend to buy a few drinks tonight, and I don't want to make 7 plastic cups, or
Yeah.
whatever different amount of plastic cups you're gonna serve me. Can you just refill this one? Like,
Yeah.
and we're lucky enough to be outside of a COVID thing, so it's not really a health issue or anything.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not touching anything. Like, so it was like, yeah, no worries. Like, we'll just refill that one for you, like, multiple times. Like, and it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
simple solutions to reduce. You're still not being perfect, but at least you're having a conscious effort to reduce the amount that you consume.
That's it. It's conscious effort. Like, that's the main
Yeah,
thing. It's
and it's not. But then some people are like, oh yeah, but you're still drinking out of a plastic cup, and it's like, well, fuck, mate. Like, you can't be perfect, Like,
yeah.
and no one expects you to be like,
Yeah.
and no one is like.
Yeah.
But if everybody can put in a basic conscious effort to reduce certain things, doesn't really matter what it is in the conservational realm. It's,
Yeah.
just that little bit of effort, when it's combined as a whole, actually becomes quite a large change.
Yeah. I mean, that it really is the kind of key to it. Is a gradual change, but just more people making that gradual change.
Yeah,
I think there's an expectation that we'll change through our vote, which is just ridiculous. It's not
yeah,
going to happen like that.
no,
And
no,
the politicians are politicians. They're always going to be politicians.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
whole like idea behind this these issues being used as political footballs is it's just like it's not going to change the problem. It's us individuals that are going to change the problem. Uh,
yeah,
and I mean, I talk as myself. I haven't done the research to think, oh, well, yeah, I can buy just use baking soda and vinegar that's in my cupboard now and
yeah,
make the stuff to wash my dishes. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that even didn't come. It's not
yeah,
something that and now I know. So now I have to make the conscious effort to do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It
yeah.
has to be done.
Yeah, and if anyone questions you about it, you're just like, well, I do
Yeah,
it for the environment, and it's cheaper. As soon
it's
as you
cheap.
mention the word cheaper, people are keen as.
Yeah, yeah,
Doesn't matter what country you go to, you tell them that
yeah,
it's cheaper, and they're like, all right, let's do
yeah.
that.
Let's
It's
do it.
cheaper, right? Let's save
Yeah,
money, man. Like,
yeah,
money talks, unfortunately. Like, and
yeah.
if
That's
that's the way that you have to get the message across, then that's the way that it works.
yeah. I mean,
Find the
that's
simplest
it.
solution rather than like
Yeah,
trying to describe. And it depends on what people you're dealing with, you know, what
yeah,
capacity they're in to actually listen.
yeah,
But you just find that quickest avenue where it's like, I know for a fact this is going to work. It's cheaper.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people are just like, sick. I love cheaper.
yeah.
Like, it's just the way it works. It's like, and then with other
Yeah.
people that are more consciously aware, then they might be more interested in going into a longer, deeper discussion about it. But
Yeah.
outside of that, kind of wasting your breath.